become like overly defensive,
Yeah.
does that mean that maybe you have a propensity to like attack? Like if someone, like, oh,
I was pushed away because of that too, but I wasn't direct bullying. It was more so behind my back, which I didn't mind because at least it wasn't affecting me as much. Once I went to art school, I finally had people who actually accepted me for who I was, and I had people that I could finally call friends. And sometimes, between friends, you'll tease and it's good fun, to tease each other, and it's a way of connecting with people, and I know that now, but I didn't back then, and I would get overly defensive if they would tease me about something. I would get upset and be try and come off very confident and strong and dominant in an attempt to nip it in the bud if it were to become bullying.
good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Army Pink podcast show.
Good
I'm Cynthia,
morning.
I'm the host of the show, and I'm really excited today because we have a new guest this week. Her name is Faye Sarens, and
Yeah.
she's calling us all the way from Belgium. But before we talk to Faye, I wanted to just give a little intro to Army Pink for those of you who are new and haven't yet subscribed to our channel. Please do. It makes our mission stronger. Also, don't forget, if you want to be notified every time we have a new guest, to subscribe. That's very important. But anyway, Army Pink was a brand founded by Robin Beement. And Robin experienced a real life domestic abuse situation. And that's really what the brand is about, shining a light on abuse to help inspire and give abuse victims tools that they can carry through the future and share their stories. And so we decided to create a lifestyle brand, Army Pink, that will encompass t-shirts, our beautiful peace pendants, which we'll talk more about. Actually, for every one of these purchase, we donate $1 to Peace Over Violence, and they help a victim abuse person escape via transportation, free transportation. So with that, I think our guest today has a very interesting story. It has a little bit of a different twist from our last guest, and I think it's just as important because it involves a very topical issue of bullying. And I think in the last decade, we've seen a lot of bullying, and we've seen the damage that it not only causes at that time, but for years forward. And so with that, Faye, do you want to share a little bit about how it started and then the journey it took you through? And then we can talk about how you evolved from that.
Yes, of course. So basically, I'm from Belgium. I do live here now, but I grew up in Cyprus. So I grew up in a country very different from here. It's this little island in the Mediterranean Sea, with a very religious island, Orthodox. Um, and the people there are a bit more closed off when it comes to people who might be different, who aren't Cypriot themselves. And when I went to school there, I started elementary school when I was 5 years old. So I was already the smallest, the youngest, the tiniest, the foreigner, and it made me an easy target. And I became a victim of bullying for 8 years, basically when I started school up until the point that I moved back to Belgium, which was a fresh start for me and was a really, yeah, the chance for me to get away from all that.
Mhm, mhm.
I,
And I think when we spoke, you mentioned that, in your career, you are a kitchen designer and you often
yeah,
have to give presentations. And
yes,
early on, you felt like some of that bullying carried through and that it affected your self-esteem and
yeah,
certainly your confidence, right? To
yeah,
do those presentations and be
yeah.
great at your job that way.
I think one of the biggest effects that bullying has on people, especially when experienced at a young age, where the mental development is so important, is it really affects your confidence, and it made me into someone who's major people pleaser, always scared to do something wrong. My main motivator in life is disappointing other people. I'm so scared of disappointing people that I do my best as much as I can in order to avoid that. I have a huge fear of rejection because of this. It's something that definitely stems from that. I've also, once I moved here, I became overly defensive because of the fear of going back into getting bullied, and I wanted to avoid that as much as I could. It's just
So
having,
when you become like overly defensive,
yeah.
does that mean that maybe you have a propensity to like attack, like if someone, like, oh,
I
you're
wouldn't
on the
say,
defense.
I wouldn't say attack. I'm not someone who will go and attack somebody back if they try and attack me. I think it's really just how it sounds. I get defensive. This is my cat Alpha. Sorry, he came to say hi. Um, and it's more so. I'll give an example. When I first came here, I was also not accepted right away. At least not in the. It was a Christian school I went to. I wasn't accepted there either. If I was a foreigner in Cyprus, but when I came here, I was also seen as a foreigner since I wasn't born here. I didn't grow up here. 13 years of my life were spent in Cyprus. Um, so I was pushed away because of that too, but I wasn't direct bullying. It was more so behind my back, which I didn't mind because at least it wasn't affecting me as much. But once I went to art school, I finally had people who actually accepted me for who I was, and I had people that I could finally call friends. And sometimes, between friends, you'll tease and it's good fun, to tease each other, and um, it shows it's a way of connecting with people, and I know that now, but I didn't back then, and I would
Mhm.
get overly defensive if they like would tease me about something. I would like get upset and be like try and come off very confident and strong and dominant in an attempt to nip it in the butt if it were to become bullying. And they explained to
And
me like,
protect yourself, I would
yes,
imagine too,
exactly,
right? It's like
exactly.
a
I had my
protection
walls
mechanism.
up. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they explained to me like, Fee, it's okay. We're just teasing with you. You don't have to take it so seriously. It's just a joke. And then I realized in that moment how much what the counter effect was of this bullying. So I think it's good that I became more defensive, but I really needed to balance that out.
Hmm.
And the only way that you can really learn to do that is to be in a healthy environment with people that care about you, and that have your best interest in mind. Because I always thought that everybody had my worst interest in mind, because I also have a tendency of over explaining and getting into very fine details about something because I'm scared that if I don't, that they're going to twist my words and use them against me. And this is also something that stems from that.
Yeah, and what I found was interesting is the length of time that this kind of lingered. I mean, I think you said that this started in daycare, correct?
It did. But that was disconnected. It was just also bullying, but by other people. After kindergarten, I would go to daycare, and there was this one boy that was older than me, taller than me, bigger than me, um, who would bully me a lot, and even convinced the only friend that I had there to dump me at some point. Um, which was very difficult for me, especially since I had a lot of trouble making friends. Um, he would even, one of the main moments that I remember during that time was that I was dragged by my foot around the where the beds were, because we had to take naps sometimes, and he was dragging me around, and he dragged me over a toy star, and it caused a big scratch on my back. Um, and things like that, they really stick with you, especially from such a young age. And it already kind of, I was already that young. It set me up for failure even more when it came to defending myself later on. So I never
Mhm.
learned to defend myself until after I left Cyprus, really. And I said, this is a fresh start for me. Nobody knows me.
Mhm.
Um, the thing about going to school in such a small country is that everybody knows each other, and putting yourself into that as a stranger, it just, everybody just kind of talks about you, and there's always communication about other people
Yeah.
between the students. And I became kind of like how you see in movies that there's always this one kid being bullied. Like, that was me. It was like,
Yeah.
if you want to bully anyone, bully her. And
Yeah.
and it made me feel so antagonized, and like the whole school was against me, and I felt very alienated, and it
And
was
it's
very
it's
difficult.
interesting that, you're at school and you've got their parents and you've got the teachers, we like to think that somebody would have stepped up, right? And kind
Yeah,
of
yeah,
stopped
yeah.
all this. But
Exactly. And my parents did a lot. They went to school many times, and they asked to, do something about this. But all the students really got was a slap on the wrist, and that's not going to stop kids from doing that.
mhm,
Um,
mhm.
and I think it's also important to keep in mind that the kids who do this often have problems at home themselves. So I don't think that these people don't deserve any compassion themselves, but it just shows the lack of compassion they likely get at home, for them to be treating others
Right,
that
they're kind
way.
of marrying that behavior that
Yeah,
they may be
exactly.
getting. They may
Exactly.
be
And
getting bullied at
yeah,
home or abused at home, and then
yeah,
they bring it out in a way that
exactly.
can
Yeah.
they feel empowered.
Exactly, so that they can feel in control, and that's very sad. And but to put that on other people, you're just continuing the corruption, really.
Right.
Um,
Now, I would think there might have been some things that lingered on that caused issues with you in the future. I mean, we talked about maybe the self-confidence with your presentations, and it
yes,
sounds like you got over that and you're very successful now. But like
yes,
trust issues, abandonment,
yeah,
were
yeah, yeah,
there
definitely. That's
effects
still a
that
main
you
thing.
had
Yeah,
from that?
I think it's also the abandonment issues comes not only from the bullying, but also from the fact that I have been abandoned a lot, and um, it always made me feel like nothing ever lasts. I have this very toxic mentality of, I feel like I can't allow myself to be happy. Um,
Hmm.
and that's also, because every time I was happy, it somehow came crashing down. And it's just, it's trauma at the end of the day. Sure, it might have been not as traumatic as a lot of other people, but I think because it lasted for so long, and I literally grew up dealing with this on a daily basis, it really changes a person. And it's up to the victim to decide if they're going to let that make them stronger, or have it weaken them. And I think it's important to take control of that, because I don't have regrets. I'm in many ways glad to be a victim of this, because it has made me who I am now, and I wouldn't want to know what I would be like without that, because I truly do my best to be a good person,
Hmm.
and that's also
Are there
unfortunate.
some ways you can talk about how you think it did make you stronger?
Yes, of course. I I I noticed that you kind of learn from other people's mistakes by that. By experiencing these things yourself, you develop a lot of empathy for people who go through hard times, and that gives you the opportunity to also, be a voice and speak up about it, just like Ruby. Ruby has done this, and I think she's done such a great job with this whole brand, and all the good that she's putting out into the world. I think it's amazing, and I think it's such a good thing that came out of this, and I think that's really important. um so
Hmm.
I would say, just like, try and take control of your past just as much as your future.
Yeah. And I think that maybe talking back to that abuser, with some truth, right? Like,
Oh yeah,
you
definitely. I
know,
think a good way to defend yourself when it comes to being bullied or abused in general, especially verbally, is you don't want to stoop down to the level of your abuser, because I think you're going to regret it in the long run, and that's what happens to the it's like how I said before, the abusers often have experienced abuse. If you're going to stoop down to that level, it's
yeah.
kind of like you're setting yourself up to continue that cycle. So I think it's important when you do defend yourself to defend yourself with the truth, to speak up for yourself, but to also tell that person this, and this about them as well, how they're treating other people, how it's making them feel, and try and really make them think about what they're doing and the impression they're leaving behind in the world, and do they really want to be remembered in that way? I don't think anybody would want that. But it's hard to explain that too, because at young age a lot of kids don't realize that, they don't understand that there's actual consequences to a lot of their actions.
And I think, taking that first step, as scary as it may be, to kind of approach them with that hard truth is really key, even if you
Definitely.
have to fake the confidence, right? Like,
Yes, I think it's very important, because a lot of people think that I'm confident or come off confident, but I am not at all confident. It's something that you just, yeah, you fake it until it becomes true. And I have become a lot more confident than I used to be, but I'm still not there. Definitely not. There's always going to be areas in your life where you have more confidence or less confidence. But if you can come off confident to other people, it's like the way that they will interact with you will make you feel more confident as well, because they will have more respect for you, and you will notice that if you start talking with less confidence, you might get talked down upon, and people will
yeah.
weaponize
It's
that.
like taking the power back.
Exactly, and that's like one of the most important things I feel like when it comes to um experiencing abuse, is that you are going through such a hard time,
Mhm.
and in people who experience abuse are out of control, like they feel like they don't have control over their life, they let others dictate that, and that's not their fault. But the first step is trying to take back control, even if it's just a little bit,
Mhm.
but doing
Mhm.
it in the right way, because as I said before, the victims of abuse who end up abusing in the future, they think that they can take back control by treating others in the same way that they've been treated,
Mhm.
and that's just not the way to do it. So
No,
it's important to stay kind, and
but strong.
be good and be strong and have your best interest in mind, and sometimes it's important to put yourself first too, although I still have to learn that as well.
Yeah, yeah. When we talked earlier, there was something you said that really kind of stuck with me. And you said, a big tool is say something, do something. Uh,
Yeah.
which, can you elaborate a little bit? Like, is that mean as soon as you're being confronted by this abuse or this bully, say something right there and then act on it and don't let it fester and continue on?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I think the thing is, some of the advice that was given to me by my parents at the time was just ignore them and eventually they'll stop, because they crave attention and they crave a
Mhm.
reaction out of you, which is true. But there comes a point where you need to decide for yourself, enough is enough. And waiting too long to do that can end up with you being, continuously abused. So um, once, if it's just small stuff, those
Mhm.
small things, you can ignore them. But when it starts to get really serious and it takes so long for something to happen, say something, speak up, stand up for yourself. And I wish I did this sooner, because the two times there was only two times in the 8 years that I stood up for myself, and only in those two times did they shut up for just a little bit. They stopped for a bit. And I wish I realized back then that if I did that more, maybe I didn't have to go through that so much. Um, So
Yeah,
that's
and
the
I
best
think
advice I
though,
can
like
give
you
you.
said earlier, if you do that, you have to do it kind of very smart, right?
Yes,
You don't want to get caught up in the emotion and just start attacking them back with
yes.
their same
Empty
bad
insults, yeah.
behavior, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because like these the verbal abuse that comes with it is often um it's very painful words, but it's often also empty insults, and doing that back is to their level, and you don't want to do that. So um just being smart about it, and maybe even showing some compassion towards them could make a difference too, and be like, hey, I don't know what's going on with you at home. I'm sure you're going through something, but this you don't treat people like this. What you're doing is bad, and you're hurting others, and it's going to have bad effects in the long run. Something along those lines. Just be smart
Mm-hmm.
about it, be mature about it, and I think uh, if you've been pushed down for so long, suddenly coming up for yourself is going to like give them a bit of a shock of like, oh wow, she's speaking up about herself. What?
Right.
And
Right.
that can shock them, and can actually, like, it's the first time for them that you're actually making a confrontation. And that's
Mhm.
something that if a bully doesn't expect that, it might actually stop them in their tracks, and they might actually leave you alone. So I think it's very important to do that. And
Yeah,
if
you
it
don't want to add
connects,
more fuel to the fire. It's
exactly, you
almost
want to
like,
stop it.
yeah, someone said, if you really want to be heard, sometimes if you whisper, you get more like,
Yes,
what are
yes,
they saying?
yes, yes. I was told this by my mom, that sometimes when because she used to be a manager, and if there were clients who were trying to shout and be rude and dehumanize, really, you know how some people can be dehumanized, people who serve you and stuff. She said she would talk very quietly and very friendly, and it would bring the person down to listen carefully, because otherwise they can't understand you, and they would calm down too. So though that is definitely a surefire tactic that you can use, and it's something that was advised to me too for future clients that I might have that might be difficult.
Tell us a little bit about how we connected with you. I think it's interesting how what compelled you to be more forefront with this when you got the Army Pink pendant.
Well, Ruby had reached out to me, and she wanted to collaborate because she thought that the aesthetic of this very beautiful and cute pendant fit the aesthetic of my Instagram page, which is as all about my setup. It's very girly, and this fit with that. So, we got to talking, and she told me her story, and was very impressed with how she dealt with all this, and it really touched me what she said and everything that she's been through, and I'm so proud of her to have been able to triumph out of this. Um, and I shared my story, and it kind of went from there.
Hmm.
I was also very touched just generally by the message of this pendant, and the good that it's doing, and contributing to helping victims of bullying find an escape. And it also compelled me to share a picture where I showed my face for the first time to
Yeah, which
people.
is huge.
Yeah. It's not like I was purposefully hiding it, yes, but I I thought, it's nice to see a face of what's behind, what you might be seeing on a daily basis, and I thought that this was the perfect opportunity to show it, because I'm proud to be a part of the Army Pink community, um and I want to show my face for that, and I think people deserve to know this face also experienced some
Because
bad
mostly
things,
your site, your social media is about gaming and the games
Yeah,
that you like and the games that you play. So
yeah.
this was kind of very different, right?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Definitely. But I think it's also in some ways you could connect it, because video games and all the things that my community generally likes, so video games and anime and all this geek stuff, it's all fantasy. It's all based in something that's not real and that could never be real, but it's like an escape. And
Mm-hmm.
that's something that a lot of victims look for when they are stuck in a certain place, and they find all these interests to escape through.
So true. I
Yeah,
mean, that's
so
what we love about the Army Pink brand, right? Is it does kind of foster strength. And the
yes,
more that we have people like you sharing your real life stories, I think people can connect with that
yeah,
and give them empowerment.
yeah.
So it's very powerful that way.
Yeah, definitely. I'm very proud of it too. I really like it, and it's so cute too. So it's not like something that you wear because you want to support, but it actually looks good too. So I think that's really nice as well, and it pushes people to, contribute even more. So I think that's great.
Yeah. Well, I thank you so much for being a guest and talking about bullying because, like I said, a lot of the focus has been more like domestic abuse, but
Yeah,
bullying has been such a problem for decades. But we're
yeah,
shining a light on that too because it's so sad what it can do to kids at an early age and how it can
definitely,
affect them throughout their life and affect their career and their
definitely,
relationships.
yes.
It really rocks the whole foundation at an early age.
Exactly, because it happens at an early age. It's such an important time during your life that is just screwed up by mean kids, and it's so unfortunate. Um, but it's important to take control of that and to stand up for yourself and to really just do something about it, because doing nothing is not going to fix anything.
Right.
Definitely very important.
Well, thank you, Fee, so much for
You're
opening yourself
welcome.
up. I know that's not easy. We appreciate it, and we hope that that fosters some strength in others to
Yes,
say
yes.
something, to do
I
something.
hope so. I hope so. And I think it's also important to know that um, sometimes bullying, even itself, can take on a form that makes it look harmless, but it really isn't.
It really
Especially
is.
nowadays, I've noticed that that's something that's a lot more prominent,
Mhm.
where the bullying might come off as them trying to be righteous, when it's really just the same. It's just
Insecurity.
bullying. It all stems from insecurity, and it all stems from trying to, find your place in the world or put someone in its place. And I think that's it's not up to someone to put you in their place. It's up to you to put yourself in your own place and decide for yourself who you want to be. So
Absolutely. Well
be
said.
careful for the hidden bullying. That's also very important.
Yeah, that is true, and it could come without you really knowing it,
Yes,
slowly and building and
exactly, exactly. That's the most manipulative kind.
right. You want to be cognizant of that.
Very.
Well, again, thank you. We'll wrap up here, and
Yeah.
I appreciate all the insights you've given us. And for those who want to hear more real life stories, be sure to subscribe to our channel, Army Pink. You can also visit our website, armypink.com. And again, we're a brand with a mission to give back and to shine a light on abuse. So this is
Yes.
Cynthia Modders signing off. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye bye.
You are like, well, oh, I'm doing something wrong here. What am I doing wrong? What could I do better? And also, I think you told me you are living a pretty glamorous life.
I was even yelled at oftentimes by him for spending over $200 at the grocery store. And that's a normal thing when you're feeding a household for a couple of weeks, especially in this day and age with the economy the way it is.
Well, if I change my behaviors, if I do better, this life, looking out into the future could be pretty awesome. What can I do to change to make this work? Is that why you stayed in it?
100%. So that it's gaslighting, right? The gaslighting that took place where he had told me that I had remembered situations differently and that how they actually were was the way that he told me they were. So the gaslighting really affected my mental well-being, my mental health, and it did make me think that I was at fault for a lot of the instances and abuses that happened.